Patriotic Ideals, Episode 11. Welcome, fellow patriots. My name is Author Larry, and my channel is Patriotic Ideals. This is a political channel in which I discuss the challenges facing our great nation and offer some solutions I consider appropriate. If you like this content, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free, and it will help me grow the channel. In this episode, we're going to be talking about interest rates, inflation, and recession. Economics is a relatively complicated subject. Some definitions and explanations are required for those not familiar with the subject. The basic principles of economics are the laws of supply and demand. The price we pay for a product or service will rise or fall based on availability. Abundance of a product will generally hold down or reduce prices. Shortages will result in high prices. Interest rates are the cost of capital. The last time we had very high rates of interest was during the very bad inflation of the 1970s. The availability of capital has gradually increased continuously since that time, which has resulted in gradually lower interest rates until recently. It is important to note that interest rates affect both supply and demand for products. Increasing consumer interest rates on credit cards, consumer loans, and home mortgages and car loans will reduce demand for products. Increasing interest rates for commercial mortgages, corporate bonds, and other commercial credit will reduce the capability of companies to provide availability of products for consumers and affects the supply side of the economy. Inflation results when demand exceeds the capability of companies to provide needed goods and services. Prices will rise as a result. Similarly, prices will stagnate or decline if excess goods or services exist due to competition. Gross domestic product is the total of all goods and services produced in our domestic economy. When gross domestic product declines for 2 quarters in a row, the country is deemed to be in recession. What is the present state of our economy, and how did it get that way? We have had very substantial inflation or rapidly rising prices for many years, which means that demand for goods and services has exceeded supply for decades. In the 1950s, when supply and demand were imbalanced in America, and every country on the planet wanted to buy American-made products, everything we invented, used, ate, and shipped overseas was made in this country. On the supply side, U.S. corporations have been sending manufacturing jobs from the United States to foreign countries since the 1970s. Jobs first went to Japan and other Oriental countries, primarily due to rising production costs at home. Later, during the Clinton administration, trade agreements were reached to open free trade with China, India, Mexico, and Canada. Many more jobs went overseas as a result of these agreements. We lost control over our supply chain as a result of these very substantial changes. I think everyone knows that nothing we wear, use, or drive is made here anymore, and very little of what we eat. Reliability of supplies from overseas has proven futile. Ports have not been expanded overseas or in the United States, and supplies sometimes have a problem getting in or out. Shortages of supply can contribute to inflation. It is important to note that the United States government has borrowed $30 trillion or more since the year 2000. Much of that money is used for social programs or increases in government employment or other spending, which increase the need for products to satisfy consumer demand. Such increases, which cannot be met by suppliers, are also inflationary. Most economists, reporters, and analysts today blame the increase in inflation on excessive government spending. Lyndon Johnson, when he was president, borrowed extensively from Social Security to build his social welfare programs, showering vast sums of money on the public which could not be provided by the supply chain at the time. This was largely responsible for the huge inflation of the 1970s. Current inflation and the inflation of the 70s are considered serious problems that threaten the health of our economy and must be resolved. Most economists agree, and college economics for the last 3 generations teaches, that the solution to inflation is for the Federal Reserve Bank to increase interest rates as substantially as necessary to reduce demand in the economy and bring supply and demand back in balance to correct the inflation we are experiencing. I disagree. Raising interest rates would dampen consumer demand, especially among the middle class and poor, but higher interest rates also dampen supply and tends to cause a recession. The present conundrum, then, is how to reduce inflation without inflicting harm on our economy, especially since that harm primarily affects the working class and poor and will reduce employment. Don't forget that our government has injected over $30 trillion into our economy of borrowed money, which, if it had not done, would have resulted in lower gross domestic product numbers for the last 20 years. In other words, have we already been in recession or depression for a long time? Raising interest rates reduces overall economic activity, but it cannot bring supply and demand back in balance. What we really have to do to bring supply and demand back in balance is to bring production back to the United States, thereby making supply more reliable at home. Because of noticed shortages of chips, some chip manufacturers have committed to build new chip manufacturing plants here in the United States. Some car manufacturers are planning to build electric vehicles to be used in America here at home, while reducing the overseas production of gasoline vehicles. Changes of this type would have a dramatic effect on reducing inflation, while at the same time increasing economic activity and jobs in the United States. This would have a substantial effect on avoiding recession as well. It is important to note here that a substantial part of the increased inflation has to do with failing to produce the oil and gasoline needed here in our own country, where we have more than adequate supply. This results from the current administration's efforts to curb the use of fossil fuels by prohibiting the production of petroleum and natural gas and shutting down pipelines. How can we not conclude that the very destructive inflation we have had for many years is not directly caused by changes in our economy directed by our own government? Government borrowing and spending increased inflation and is still doing so. Trade agreements directed by government exported millions of American jobs to foreign countries, reducing our production of products at home. Government restrictions prevented production of petroleum products required for energy at home and made us reliant on imports. How can we not also conclude that since it was our government that directed the export of so many jobs to foreign countries, dramatic reduction in our economy has also resulted from the action of our own leaders? We need to realize that the basic inflation problem we have has nothing to do with damaging higher interest rates, which would only tend to further destroy the economy we have already done so much to damage. Raising interest rates reduces both supply and demand. It has also been suggested that raising taxes could reduce demand. Increasing taxes also dampens both supply and demand and would further damage the economy. The problem we must solve is to increase supply to meet demand. There is an immediate need to place import restrictions on the importation of certain types of products from China and other countries, not only for the purpose of improving our economy, but also for purposes of security. It is likely that much of our technology and military capability is being given away by having everything produced in other countries, many of which are not even friendly or allied with U.S. interests. Lower taxes and lower interest rates are both beneficial to an expanding economy. Imbalance in supply and demand is not beneficially corrected by attempting to reduce demand. The correct solution to an inflation problem is to encourage our corporations to increase production here and bring jobs back to America. Recession will automatically be avoided if we go about correcting our inflation problem in the correct way and avoid taking any action which will contribute to a recession.
Yes.
It is my belief that the mistakes made by our government that become the cause of such severe problems in our economy are not accidental or out of ignorance. It is my impression that they deliberately make these changes with the intent of benefiting other nations economically, despite the cost to the American economy. They are globalists and appear to be much more concerned with providing economic benefit to other countries. It is not wrong to want to improve the lives of people in other countries. It is only wrong to do so at the expense of our own countrymen who have elected you to guide our economy in our own best interest. In a later broadcast, I will offer ideas on world economic policies that will benefit all universally. These subjects are discussed at length in my books, which are sold on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. The first book, titled Past, Present, and Future Planet Earth, examines the origin and progress of intelligent life on our planet. Love Letters to America identifies the problems discussed here and others which have caused us to drift further and further away from the great society our forefathers intended for us. I have written 33 love letters to America to offer some solutions. If you like this content, give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. Your comments are always welcome, and I will respond to all that I can. Watch for weekly episodes. Our next episode will be about religions. Religion is an important part of our culture and has a substantial impact on our daily lives. Patriotic ideals. See you next week.